I got the privilege to interview Prehistoric Planet producer Mike Gunton, thanks to the folks at Smith House. I'm lucky enough to have been provided screeners for the season, so I knew what to ask Mike. And boy, y'all are in for a treat when it drops November 26th on Apple TV+. I want to save a full in-depth review for later, so stay tuned. What is the hardest creature what is the hardest creature to animate? But I should say type of creature, so you don't, spoil anything.
No, well, I think this series, Ice Age, is a level of difficulty harder than it was with seasons 1 and 2. Seasons 1 and 2 had challenges because, of course, you don't know as much what those creatures are like because they're dinosaurs, and we have to do much more interpolation and interpretation. But that's a double-edged sword because we kind of know what a mammal should look like, how it should kind of behave. But that means that we as human beings are super sensitive about anything that looks slightly off. That dreaded uncanny valley moment,
especially with dogs.
Yeah, and and cats.
Cats.
But I think also even elephants. Mammals are kind of elephants. So I think the acuity of the human eye and brain is super sharp when it comes to this. So to get it absolutely looking right, so you definitely don't think, oh, is that VFX? No. the second that somebody switches on our show, I do not want them ever to think about it being VFX. That's almost the first filter we have to apply. So it is difficult, and you can probably imagine going to the VFX company saying, well, we're doing mammals, and they went, oh, well, that's hard.
Oh, by the way, all those hairs, all those follicles.
There's a million hairs on those things.
Why can't you just do lizards?
Each one of those hairs can behave differently.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we're doing them in the snow. It is, I mean, it's so difficult to do.
Yeah.
What was really fascinating about this particular experience was that we went to the frame store, but also shout out to their animators, but also Russell Dodson, who's their VFX supervisor, who's the guy who really is my main contact there. I mean, what was fantastic about working with him and his team was not what you expect them to say, oh, do we really have to do that? Oh, please. But the opposite said, no, we're going to do that, absolutely. And we're going to what about if we got them to do this? And we're going, what? Can you actually do that? So they really absolutely push the envelope in a way that is astonishing. Jon Favreau, who's my co-exec, he says, and he's a guru in this stuff. He says it's as good as VFX as anywhere in the world. And this is a TV show. We're not a Hollywood blockbuster. This is a TV, but nevertheless, the best. I think it's the best there is.
It's definitely up there for some of the best VFX I've ever seen, even compared to movies and stuff. Yeah. But speaking of logistical hurdles, so me and a lot of other people online have noticed a lack of crocodiles throughout the show. There is one attacking the pterosaurs in season 2, I think. And there was a terrestrial one, the herbivore one. Is it more of is their absence or seeming absence more of a logistical issue with interacting with the water, or is it more it just happened to be like that because you're deciding which things to include?
Yeah, I mean, we never let the interactions be as I was saying, even all across the entire 3 seasons, we've always said, if we want this story to happen, we'll find a way of making it happen, rather than saying, oh, could we just hide that behind, so that wasn't an issue. No, I mean, I just think when you're doing the first 2 series, when you've got 10 million years of incredible creatures, and when this current series, you've got 1.5 million years of incredible creatures, there's a huge cast list to choose.
Right, yeah.
And I love, I love, and crocodiles are extraordinary. I wouldn't say that, I've just
you don't want to hug them or anything, but
no. But I suppose you just think to yourself, if you can only have so many creatures in your cast list. And so I guess we pushed for the ones that I think and we think are the ones that are the most surprising, or of which we can tell the best stories. And in some ways, crocodilian behavior is probably not that different 60 million years ago as it is today. Whereas what's fascinating about the things we have chosen is the behavior that they're exhibiting is new and is surprising. And so I think it wasn't a kind of, we didn't have a big cross on the wall saying no crocodiles. It just, they never quite made it to the top 10 of our cast list.
Okay. I figured, I just want to throw that out there.
To the crocodilian fans. But,
what level of creative freedom is given to the experts, like when you guys are formulating these stories?
Well, I mean, I would say, it depends what you mean by experts, of course. I would like to think that everybody working on this series is an expert in their own.
Oh, sure. Scientific experts.
No, but I think it's a fair point, because actually I think the creative execution of the whole project is a culmination of expertise of varying different types. Of course, there's the paleontological expertise, but there's also the natural history expertise. And there's a photographic expertise, and there's a VFX expertise, all of which come together to create a convincing manifestation of these creatures. Now, in terms of everything starts with the science. It doesn't matter when I'm making shows about contemporary animals, it still starts with the science. It still starts with a field researcher saying, I've just seen some incredible bit of behavior in the Africa, and we go off and film that. So it's the same thing here. The only difference is it's historic. So effectively, the equivalent of that is, we have an amazing network of academic advice, but channeled through our scientific advisor, Dr. Darren Naish, who's a kind of guru in his own right. He has this amazing ability. He has this network, as I say, of all these people, all of whom funnel through him. He's incredibly knowledgeable. So everything that happens in the shows is built from the bottom up from the science. But what you see as a pyramid or an iceberg, whichever way you want, I suppose a pyramid, and the very tip of the pyramid is what we actually see on the screen. But every single level of that is underpinned, but down to the, of course, there is physical evidence, but there's also, and by that I mean things like bones and fossils, but there's also the evidence that behaviorists, or whatever you want, ethologists bring to it about this. How do animals work? How do animals tend to operate under these circumstances? And that's part of my. I mean, I wouldn't call myself an expert with a little e. I've spent my working life filming animals doing things, and I'm a biologist originally by education. So we have quite a good sense of the sorts of rules that Mother Nature plays by, and those that can also be applied to the stories. So everything that I think you see on the screen comes from a scientific starting point, and is filtered through lots of legitimacy filters, for want of a better word. That couldn't happen. That could happen. That couldn't happen. That could happen. And then you end up rather like a sort of Sherlock Holmes deduction mystery. It must be that, because that's the only way it could ever operate. It could only be that manifestation.
Complex with such a big project.
It's complex in the sense that it's very, as I say, the way one way of thinking of it is a load of filter gates, and every decision goes through this filter, and if it can't, it goes left or right, and if it goes right, or rather the right path, if it goes right, no, that couldn't happen, so it must go left, and it's like a decision tree that goes up and up and up and up and up, or down and down and down, which way you want to turn it, until eventually you come up with the most likely the most likely thing, the most likely reality. It's minimum parsimony or something like that. I can't remember. There's some
parsimony,
something to do
something
with
like that.
Yeah, there's some kind of deductive process which we are applying. But just to finish on that. But of course, no one. Well, actually, when I say no one was there to see it, actually that's not quite true, because of course lots of these creatures that we're filming. That's why I love the Ice Age show, is because these animals are within touching range. A huge number of these animals were around when our ancestors were wandering around. We are creatures of the Ice Age ourselves. In fact, some of our evidence actually comes from cave art. So
Oh,
some of
right.
the
Yeah, like the color patterns and stuff.
yeah, exactly, like the
Yeah.
Megalosaurus.
Yeah.
And also it brings a romance to it because you sort of feel that you could actually, if you were out on the Siberian steppes in a blizzard, you might go, what is that? Is that a mammoth? Whereas you're never going to do with a T-Rex. So
Right, right.
that's what I like about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the romance of it. I think that's, we sort of almost have like an ancestral memory connection to that sort of stuff.
No question.
Yeah.
And every animal, well, not every, but most of the animals on planet Earth today were alive during the Ice Age or
Right,
during
right.
Ice Ages. So we're all kind of Ice Age survivors. So it's a kind of it's almost like a genealogy. It's looking back at it's looking back, which people love, don't they? Where did we come from? What was the world that created us? And I think that's the world that we're looking into.
What comes next? um, is more predicated upon how well it does, or are you guys actively seeking to do more? If that's
In a way, that's a question I can't really answer because
okay.
it's out of my hands.
Right. Yeah.
I don't. I'm not. I'm the producer, the maker. I
Mhm.
come up with the idea. I unfortunately don't have the. I'm not a commissioner, so that's a
Mhm.
question that I'd love you to ask to our commissioner. But we've had a very good run. I mean, we've done 3 series now, 3 seasons, which has been
Mhm.
well. The first 2 have been incredibly well received. I'm really hoping this one is received. So we'll see. Um, where if somebody asked me where would I send the time machine next,
Mhm.
a good question. I think would you go back to the time even earlier in the dinosaurs' time, or would you go to that lovely period, but just after the dinosaur extinction, and when this
Mhm.
the slate was rubbed clean, and we could? I don't know. It's a fascinating.
I imagine there'd be a lot more CGI involved with Carboniferous and
Yeah,
all, those sorts of things.
but that's one of the great joys. I think one of the things that's exciting. This idea that we are effectively have a time machine in our hands, which we
Oh,
can go anywhere
yeah.
in the
Highest fidelity time machine
yeah.
anyone could ever ask for. Similar to the question of where you would want to go next, is what was your favorite animal that showed up that you can talk about?
Um, no, I'm very happy to talk about any of the creatures because we're quite close to air now, so
Mhm. Yeah.
it's now hopefully. That's always a tough question. I mean, clearly, I was very keen to have the A-listers, the sort of superstars, the
Hmm.
woolly mammoths, the saber-toothed cats, of which there are many,
Hmm.
all great stuff. Um, but I think one of the things that has surprised me actually, and I feel slightly embarrassed to say it, that I hadn't really when I was coming up with the idea of doing this, my head was all about ice age, cold, northern hemisphere, all that kind of stuff. And I hadn't really thought about. I mean, of course I knew there were other creatures around at that time, but I hadn't really thought about the consequence of the ice age. And this is it's a big part of our presentation, really,
Hmm.
that of course ice age is ice and cold, but the consequence of all that water being sucked out of the ecosystem and locked away in the ice was huge impact in other parts of the world, particularly in the south. And there's desertification, aridification, the retreat of forests, the advance of grasslands. All this had huge impacts on the ecology and the biomes of all these, the biodiversity of all these creatures. So you have whole different groups coming to the fore, and I was surprised about that, particularly way down in the southern hemisphere, in the world of in the marsupial stronghold. I had no idea. I mean, I'd heard of Thylacolea, I'd heard of marsupial lions, but I had no idea about giant kangaroos and huge wombats, and the fact that these things are these marsupial lions is more koala than lion, all that kind of thing. Strange creatures. And in terms of when you were asking earlier about how we bring these things to life, they were some of the trickiest because the particularly Thylacolea is kind of doesn't it behave. Its anatomy and its skeleton and the way it operates and
Doesn't walk right.
its ecology is weird,
Yeah.
and actually it was a really tricky one to to get right. But then you have to be. I mean, part of the job is that you go, what looks right and what doesn't look right as a sort of natural historian. But there are sometimes yourself, no, this doesn't look right, but it is right because there's no other way that skeleton can operate. And this is a fascinating sort of feedback loop between what we do and the science, because we often do ask the paleontologists, the academia, some difficult questions. We say, well, look, we've got this skeleton, we've put it into the computer, and when you ask the computer to make it move, it will only allow it to move in this way. So therefore it cannot do that. It must do this. And they go, oh yeah, I haven't really thought about that. Well, that means this. And so you get this lovely kind of new path of discovery or exploration, slightly driven by the fact that we have to actually make these things behave. They have to do it. They have to live a life. They can't just sit in a museum as a static skeleton. They have to be living things. And that does, asks interesting questions. So I like to think we are, as well as drawing from science, we're actually catalyzing science as well by asking these questions.
Quick non sequitur. What's your favorite dinosaur?
Favorite dinosaur?
You have to pick one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be slightly controversial because I'm going to pick a dinosaur, which of course.
I see what you're doing.
Loves the T-Rex, but I do love the pterosaurs. I love. Okay. I mean, those giant asdarchids. Just the most. I mean, there's never been anything else on planet Earth like those. Yeah. It's a kind of design, for want of a better word, that Mother Nature came up with, went crazy with it, and then just abandoned it. If I had to have one, if I could wave a magic wand and say I want one creature to still be alive today, I'd say one of those giant asdarchids.
It'd be terrifying.
I'd be scared.
But they would be cool, yeah. But they have sort of a scary but also like ethereal sort of look to them,
To see one fly wouldn't it be amazing?
Oh yeah,
incredible. Yeah, I mean the trouble is I can think of 5 of these creatures. There was a lovely little thing called Mononychus, which I loved it because of I just love the natural history of it. The fact that it had this ability, they think this ability to localize sounds with these slightly asymmetric ears, and it had, and it was a termite eater, and so it's fascinating.
Were you involved with actually going to the places to film?
Not very often, sadly.
Okay.
We do go to. It's a very important part of our approach that we make the creatures are built in CG, but the environments. Not always, but largely, we film real environments for a whole load of reasons. One, but I think it's part of our natural history. I and this side of the team we're all wildlife filmmakers, and that's what we do. We go to these places to film stuff. So we wanted to, as part of the authenticity. And Jay Hunt, who's the commissioner, she was very keen as well that sense of authenticity was part of it. And also, Mother Nature still does an incredible job of building stuff. And actually, I still think, when you go to a real environment, it does bring up these sort of unexpected elements that your imagination wouldn't be able to provide. Said that, we have sometimes used those environments and then rebuilt them in computers for various sort of technical reasons. But we did. I went to. There's probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole of the Ice Age series is the scene with the woolly rhinos being chased by the wolves, and that I was out there in Norway when we were filming that, and it makes you realize how technically difficult it is. We've actually one of the interesting breakthroughs technically in this series, we've used these reference puppets, we have these amazing puppeteers who operate these technical reference puppets in the locations. And what's that allowed us to do is one of the things I was very keen on, which is this kind of visual relationship between animals, because there's much more sociality in this series than there is with dinosaurs, inevitably. And so a lot of that is about how animals react to each other. And a lot of those reactions are sort of micro movements, little looks, little kind of tiny movements. And that's very hard to the way to bring that to life is using little camera moves to connect these things. That's very hard to do in your imagination. But when you have something physical to operate against, these puppets, it allowed us to replicate those kind of moves. So we've done that, and then of course the reference puppets are removed from the scene and then replaced by the CG animals. So we did a lot.
Are those reference puppets like the sort of blank sort of blue screen or white sort of?
No, much more complex than that. Much more sophisticated than that. So those sort of the blue silhouette sort of things which we have used in the past as kind of reference again for camera moves, but also scale. Now these are fully articulated. Have you ever seen Warhorse? I don't know if you've ever seen the show Warhorse.
I think so. Yeah.
They're a bit like that. They have very, very high levels of articulation, and the puppeteers could operate them to give them that sort of sinuous, real movement. They're amazing, full stop. And watching the puppeteers operate is phenomenal because they can bring personality, and that's the other thing that these mammals are. We're mammals. We understand that their individual character is individual animals have individual personalities and characters, and we wanted to reflect that in what we did. So being able to instill a bit of personality into those reference puppets meant that when we film them and then replace them with the CG creatures, we've got a really good baseline to replicate. I was out in Norway, both in the camera car. We had a sort of a Caterpillar tracked camera vehicle with the camera doing all these lovely tracking shots. But we also were out there helping, being the rear end of a woolly rhino or the front of a woolly rhino or something like that, kicking up.
Oh, were you helping to puppet one of them?
I'm not skilled enough to operate the puppet.
Okay.
There were, as well as the puppets, we did have little silhouette blocks as well. So sometimes one of us would be the rear end or the front.
What would you say is the highlight of your documentary career? If you can. That's a quick question,
Well, I suppose the easiest answer to say to that, and in some ways it is true, is the latest project I'm working on.
Okay.
Because I think that's part of what is exciting about what I do. Is that every time you get a chance to make one of these projects, I feel it has to be the pinnacle, because that's what drives you on. And I'm incredibly proud of this project, but not only because I think it's technically almost. It's like if anybody had said to me 10 years ago that this would be possible to make, I would have said, you've got to be joking. So I think the fact that this is the right time, even this particular, the Ice Age one, we probably couldn't have made this when we were at the time we were making the dinosaur one, because I just don't think we were technically up to it, and also I think probably creatively or narratively up to it. I think we learned a lot from season 1 and 2 to make season 3. Sorry, so. This is definitely a highlight, particularly because to be given the chance to do it, to be able to, somebody effectively said, here's the keys to a time machine, off you go. And that is definitely a career highlight. Yeah, I'm very, very proud, excited. And I have to give a shout out to the number of people. I mean, when I do these big natural history spectaculars, we probably have 1,000 people work on it. There's twice as many on this. It's just a huge number of people, most of who are unsung heroes, who just working in a room and on a computer doing incredible work, which is like alchemy to me. I have no idea how they do it, but they do, and it is absolutely astonishing to be able to.
And it shows. Appreciate your time so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
I'm glad you like the series. That's important to me. I mean, people who are like yourself, who are experts and are very fine-tuned, critical appreciation. If you like it, that makes me happy.
For more interesting stories about nature, the history of life, or what goes bump in the night, subscribe, like this video, drop a comment in the comment section below, and hit the bell icon to stay in the know with everything Edge. Thanks for watching.